Okay everyone, so I'm getting a lot of questions on how to create a line graph with a regression line over it. So here's an example using Excel. Here I have a data set where I have months of treatment. This is a clinical setting, so how long they've been going to therapy. And then this is also a score on a happiness scale that has scores ranging from 100 to 500. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the scatter plot. So your lab slides of week 10, and I believe those slides are numbers 28 through 37, include information on how to create scatter plots in Excel and SPSS. So when you go through those slides, you should be able to follow along with me here. What you would do to create the scatter plot is highlight your data, and then you click on Insert, and then you have a whole section of possible charts that you can use. You can click on the scatter plot chart here. Alright, so for those of you who are keeping up with your APA style, you also know that you need to change some of the settings here to make sure that they fit what is required for APA. So for instance, you need to play around with this to figure out how to get rid of these grid lines and how to label your axes and your chart title properly. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to do that, but what I'm going to show you how to do is to create the line. So all you need to do to create the regression line is go to Add Chart Element and go to Trend Line. You'll go to Linear, since what you're doing is a linear correlation, and then the line will show up right there, okay? So it's very easy. You just have to play around with Excel a little bit to figure out what you're doing. And then what you'll also notice is you have to get rid of these dots. So all you need to do to get rid of the dots is click on the set of dots, right click, and then make the fill no fill, so that there's no color inside of the dot. And then you need to change your outline to no outline, and that will take away all of the circles of the dots. So after I click off, you'll see that I have just the line. Alright? Then also what you can do is go to this trend line. Again, go to Add Chart Element, go to Trend Line, and you can go to More Trend Line Options. So when you go to More Trend Line Options, you can see all of these different options that you have to play around with. You don't need to worry about these for right now, but what you can do is look at the equation for the regression line on the chart, just like you can do with SPSS, and I'll show you what you do there. You can also even display your R squared value on the chart, and that will be important. I'll leave it up to you to remember why that's important, but you can get this R squared value right there, okay? So again, this is not an APA formatted graph, but this does show you how to create the regression line and how to hide the scatter plot dots, okay? So now let's do an example using SPSS. Alright, so I'm going to pull up the slides here from class, and this is starting on Lab 10 PowerPoint slide 32. As you can see here, they have a data set, so let's just use a similar data set here. This is the same months of treatment versus the score on happiness scale that we used for Excel. So now I'll go to the next slide, and this tells me to go to, well, first on this first slide, what you do is go to Graphs, Legacy Dialogues, and then you're going to click on Scatter Dot. So this is going to create a scatter plot or a dot graph. So you'll go to Graphs, Legacy Dialogues, Scatter, and Dot. Okay, I'll click that. I get this option. Here on the slides, this tells you what to click on. I'm going to click Simple Scatter, and then click Define, because I need to tell SPSS where each variable is going to go. When I do that, I get this window that tells me, or gives me the option to put each variable on the axis that I want. So the slides walk me through this process as well. I can put months of treatment on the x-axis so that I can clearly see which month, how the scores change based on month. And then I'll put the score on happiness scale on the y-axis so that I can see how large or small each person's score on the scale is. So I've moved them over. Now I'll click OK. And what I get is an output box that looks like this. So just like with Excel, I've got this scatter plot that has all of these dots on them. They have my x-axis and y-axis already labeled for me because I put the variables directly into the calculation, so I don't need to do anything extra there. But I do need to do some formatting. So here we need to add the regression line. So this says to double click the graph that was produced. I double click and I get this box here that pops up. And as you can see here, we have an option right here in a button right on the top above the graph that says add fit lines. This is your trend line. This is your regression line. So you click on this and it adds the line right there for you. Okay? So just like you saw with Excel, you have a box here that shows you the actual equation for the regression line. That's great. You have your R squared value here, which also means something, and that's up to you guys to figure out. But you should know it by now. And then you also need to put this in APA formatting. So these slides walk you through the rest of these steps that you can use to put them in a Word document, but also you need to look up how to put this in APA format. So for instance, you need to get rid of this gray background. You need to make sure that you're not copying and pasting the entire thing with this background here. You need to make sure it's formatted appropriately. And you need to refer to your APA manual as well as the OWL at Purdue if you don't have the APA manual for those different pieces of information. All right? So this is how you can do that, and just make sure that you have all of the different parts of the graphs that you need for the submission. And also don't forget that for this week's submission, you also need to include your abstract keywords and your references along with your figure, with your graph here. Okay? All right. Good luck, guys.